Good. Good evening and welcome to the July 17th meeting of the City of Vista Planning Commission. Would you all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Kramer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Salazar, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Bell? Here. Commissioner Carroll?
Here.
Commissioner Kramer? Here. Commissioner Garrettson?
Here.
Commissioner Jackal?
Here.
Vice Chairman Looney?
Yes.
And Student Commissioners Grace and Student Commissioner Jesse? All right.
And the chairman's here too.
And,
so,
and Chairman
we'd like
Rosler, yes.
We'd like to welcome Mr. Salazar. He is our new secretary for the Planning Commission, his first meeting, and our new student commissioners for this year, their first meeting. So welcome to all of you. Commissioners, before you, the next item is the approval of the minutes from the June 5th meeting. Can we hear, if there are no changes, can we hear a motion to approve, please? Commissioner Garrison?
I would move to approve the minutes as written.
Commissioner Looney?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the June 5th meetings. Please cast your vote. And the minutes are approved on 5 to 0 to 2 vote. Commissioner Carroll and Commissioner Kramer were absent, so they have abstained from voting on the minutes. Thank you very much. Ms. Chow, any changes to the agenda?
Good evening, Chairman. No changes tonight. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is oral communications. This is the time that the Commission sets aside for people to address the Commission on items that are not on the agenda. I do not have any speaker slips, so if there's no one else wishing to address the Commission, we will move along to our first public hearing. Under our public hearing, staff will make a presentation. The applicant will be given some time to add to that presentation to further explain the project. We will then open it up to the public for testimony. I have speaker slips that need to be filled out if you wish to address the Commission on the item. We will then close the public hearing and give the applicant a time to rebut, answer any questions that the Commission has. We'll have Commission discussion, and then we'll vote on the project. So that's our procedure. So if you want to address the Commission tonight, you need to fill out a speaker slip and give it to Mr. Salazar, our recording secretary. So having said that, Mr. Connolly, the staff report on Trade Tech High School, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. This is a special use permit amendment for Trade Tech Charter High School. The location is at 1132 and 1126 North Melrose Drive, which is shown in the right hand of the overhead photo here. It's within a center known as Park 1200, which is an industrial commercial center that was built back in the 80s. 1126 and 1132 North Melrose are separate buildings within the center. The center itself includes prior approvals for both church and school uses, which I'll cover. And this proposed special use permit would create one use permit regulating the remaining in church school uses within the center. Some brief history on the center. The Park 1200 was developed in 1987. North Coast Church established a church use within the center prior to our special use permit requirement that applies today. So that was the initial church establishment. Between 1990 and 2001, North Coast obtained several special use permit amendments to expand their church use on the site, which ended in 2010 when they vacated the site and the special use permit was transferred to the existing user, Life Christian Church. Life Christian currently occupies the church use at 1132 North Melrose, which is the subject of the school permit. Trade Tech High School established in separate buildings in 2010 with a minor use permit. Those buildings included about 30,000 square feet at 1126 and 1130 North Melrose from 2010 to present, and they're still at that location. The use permit amendment that's before you this evening would move Trade Tech, or the majority of its facilities, into the existing 36,408 square foot building at 1132 North Melrose and maintain about 5,000 square feet of space in an existing building at 1126 North Melrose. The remainder of Trade Tech's space in 1126, which is about 5,000 square feet, would be leased for office space, and the remainder of 1130 North Melrose, which is about 20,000 square feet, would be vacated by the school, all of those uses moving into 1132. The existing church would continue to operate at 1132 and share space with Trade Tech High School, and the high school is limited to 300 students under the existing use permit and what is proposed as part of the use permit amendment. This is a aerial photo that shows the layout of the buildings on the site, just to give you a better idea of how the uses would be transferred around the property. The yellow shows the subject building, 1132 North Melrose. This is the 36,000 square foot building that would be shared with both the church and Trade Tech High School. Trade Tech would maintain about half of 1126, which is shown down in the right-hand corner in orange. Those are the two subject buildings that would be covered by the special use permit. The northern part of 1126, which Trade Tech currently occupies, would be vacated to be used for office space. That's shown in the green. And the entire blue building, which is 1130, would be vacated by the school and be leased out to other commercial uses that fit the zoning that are unknown at this time. This is a floor plan that shows the space for 1132, the largest building to be shared between the school and church. The yellow area is, this is the first floor plan. The yellow area is the school space, 24/7. The green area is shared hallway and facilities between the church and the school. The blue is shared classrooms. The sanctuary is primarily used by the church, but is allowed up to 5 times a month for the school use. And the orange is office space to be used by the church. So it's all fairly well laid out in terms of what is shared and what is used by either user. This is the second floor, which shows a shared hallway in green and the shared classroom space in blue, and some upstairs offices for the church in the orange. The area in yellow to the left is an open ceiling to the lower space on the first floor. The zoning the general plan designation on the left is industrial general, which allows a range of commercial and industrial uses. Both churches and schools are allowed in the general plan designation with a use permit. The specific plan governs the zoning. It's industrial commercial, again, use permit required for a church and a school. The primary issue with respect to this application is parking. The Park 1200 Center includes 247 parking spaces with a reciprocal agreement that allows shared usage of the lot. The building at 1132 North Melrose has 87 spaces on their property. That's part of that 247. The development code for high schools, colleges, and universities requires an extensive amount of parking for a high school use. Per our code, it would be 554 spaces based on the size of the building and the use proposed. The school that's proposed doesn't have the characteristics that really meet that high of a parking need. Based on information provided by the school, the majority of their students currently don't drive, and it's actually closer to 20% of drivers, between 15 to 20% in the past 2 years. And I have a chart here that I'll show you on the next slide that has the last 10 years of usage for their parking. The staff's requesting, along with the school, a reduced parking ratio based on the historical need for the school that's been shown on the site. This is at the discretion of the Planning Commission under the terms of the use permit, so completely at your discretion this evening. The student enrollment is capped at 300, and there is a condition requiring that Trade Tech or a comparable operator, which is defined in the conditions, operate the school under the terms of the SUP, or an amendment would be required. To give you some background on the amount of parking that the school has historically required, the principal provided these numbers to show from the time that they've opened in 2011 to now, how many staff, students, and the number of student parking spaces that have been needed for each year. I calculated these out. They're somewhere between 15 to 22%, so on average about 18%. If you use that number with the maximum student body of 300 and a maximum number of staff of 20, you'd still have enough with the 87 parking spaces. It's be about roughly 60 spaces for students and 20 spaces for staff, which works out to about 80. So from the staff's perspective, the school continues to operate in the pattern that it historically has. Sufficient parking will be provided on the site. There's two main access driveways on North Melrose that are north and south of the building on 1132 that are shown with the blue and red arrows there. Access into and out of the site is full access, left and right turns. There's a circulation driveway in front of the building that would allow for pickup and drop off, and parking surrounds the building, which is easily accessible from the driveways. There's pedestrian access to the rear building if needed for the additional high school space. And there is a condition of approval included, which allows for the traffic engineer to review circulation if traffic from the school impacts public streets surrounding the site. Staff's reviewed the application. It's consistent with the general plan and zoning. The church and school would be compatible with the surrounding commercial uses based on their past operations in the center. Parking would require the Planning Commission's approval, which is within the resolution before the Commission this evening, and it is supported by staff. Access via the existing driveways has been reviewed by traffic engineering, and conditions are included that allow the review of on-site circulation if that's needed. Finally, the school exists within the center now, and shifting space within the center is comparable in size in terms of the square footage, and the cap of 300 students remains in place. And with that, staff's recommending approval of a use permit amendment to allow Trade Tech to operate within the building at 1132 North Melrose and continue occupying a portion of 1126 North Melrose with the associated conditions. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Any questions for staff? Okay. I'd like to hear from the applicant, Carl Higgins and Doreen Quinn. Is this a joint presentation or?
It's going to be a 1-2, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Carl Higgins. I'm the land use consultant to Trade Tech High School and also their agent for the application. This has been a long and a successful partnership and relationship between the city and Trade Tech. City leaders like yourself and staff, and thank you, staff, have had a direct hand in the success and the national recognition of Trade Tech. This agenda item is a continuation and a strengthening of that relationship. Trade Tech now has a curriculum in robotics, architecture, engineering, and manufacturing. Those are all supported locally by industry. Trade Tech has worked hard at being a good neighbor in the industrial park. There have been no complaints and no issues that we're aware of from other tenants and owners of facilities in the industrial park. And in conclusion, we absolutely agree with the staff report, the proposed conditions on the project, and the recommendation. Thank you. And this is Doreen Quinn, the CEO of Trade Tech.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Doreen Quinn, and I'm the founder and CEO of North County Trade Tech High School. Trade Tech was founded back in 2007, actually approved by Vista Unified School District in 2006. We're excited to be here this evening as we look to a forever home. We've been in 3 different locations. This will be our 3rd, and it'll allow us to grow and provide a workforce, a prepared workforce for our local businesses, namely in construction, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and carpentry, as well as engineering, architecture, manufacturing, and machining. So we are very excited about it. I'd sit here and talk all night about our accomplishments, but I'll let you read up on those, and we'll send you all a video real soon. So thank you again, and thank you, John.
Could you tell us a little bit about your students? One of the things that we're wrestling with here tonight is the parking, and you've said that your students, the majority of your students, don't drive. Can you tell us a bit about them?
So the location that we're talking about this evening was chosen because of its proximity to the Sprinter, as well as the bus. Majority of our kids come in via the Sprinter and bus. They also live on North Avenue, Olive, and again, we're really serving about 50% of our population is right there from that neighborhood.
Okay, very good. And they don't drive?
They don't drive, or they don't have a car. They have a lot of skateboards and bicycles.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Those were the only speaker slips that I have. Anyone else wish to address the commission about Trade Tech High? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and open it up to commissioner discussion. Commissioner Garrison.
I just want to say I had the privilege to meet with the principal at Trade Tech. I am really supportive of their preparation for the students and how they prepare the workforce to fill jobs within the community. So my only question would be on parking, and I think that was answered with their actual study, because initially we were just told a number without knowing that there was a study done on how many students were driving, plus the proximity to the Sprinter, plus the bus, plus local kids. So I can understand probably half the kids aren't old enough to drive anyway. So anyway, so far I've been very impressed with what I've seen.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Jackal.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank staff, if staff is the one who did it, for providing the color-coded floor plans. That made it really easy to figure out what you were describing. That was great. I, too, over a number of years, have had a very friendly relationship with Trade Tech and their students. My Rotary Club has sponsored some of their classes in competitions that they won. So I am, with the parking question answered, I'm very much in favor.
Very good. Commissioner Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be in full support of the project this evening. I think that it was very well defined by staff, so it was very clear, and the addition of the information on the parking makes a whole lot of sense. And if North Coast, when they live there, could make the parking work, I'm sure you can. So thank you very much.
I can't believe that North Coast has been out of that facility for 18 years. That was amazing. 8 years. 8 years? Oh, yeah. Okay. That makes more sense to me now. With the information that the applicant and staff has provided on the students that are coming here, I think my concerns about the parking were satisfied also. So, would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to adopt Resolution 2018 next, granting amendment to a special use permit to allow for a charter high school to operate within a shared facility at the existing church located at 1132 North Melrose Drive and continue occupying the portion of 1126 North Melrose Drive, and a reduction in the parking requirements as provided in the plan.
Commissioner Garrison?
I will second that motion.
All right, we've had a motion and a second to approve the special use permit. Would you please cast your ballot? And the motion passes unanimously. So, thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 2, which is a site development plan and tentative map and special use permit for an automotive repair facility at 129 Grapevine Road. Mr. Conley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a site development plan, tentative parcel map, and special use permit. The project site is shown here on the right side of the slide at 129 Grapevine Road. It's about 1.5 acres. It's one legal parcel, has current commercial general plan and zoning designations. There's an extensive history of prior uses included in the staff report, which include a bar, the existing billboard, a mobile home sales use, and a single-family residential home. The only remaining use on the site is the billboard, which we'll talk more about. The site development plan, tentative parcel map, and special use permit is to develop a 14,522 square foot automotive service center and expand the used car dealership that's currently located across the street. The automotive service center would include 18 service bays, offices, parts sales and storage, and meeting rooms that's shown in the floor plans and elevations included in the packet. The proposal would also include a vehicle display area for the existing Classic Chariots dealership across Grapevine. Site improvements include street improvements on both frontages of Grapevine and West Vista Way, pavement, fencing, utilities, landscaping, lighting, and stormwater improvements. The existing commercial billboard is proposed to remain on the site. And the tentative parcel map would split the lot into 2 parcels, which would be dedicated for commercial use and deal with all the right-of-way associated with the public street. There would be both a vacation and some excess. The site development plan and special use permit floor plan or site plan is shown on the right of the slide here. You can see there's an existing drainage channel that runs through the property from the northeast to the southwest corner of the site, which splits the property into 2. So there's really 2 development pads. The westerly pad would include the service center, which would be a 2-story building with a maximum height of about 33 feet, would include the 18 repair bays and 7 exterior parking spaces. The vehicle display is shown on the right, which would be the eastern parcel, which would be an expansion of Classic Chariots, and there would also be a small area vehicle display in the southwest corner of the site, just south of where the automotive building would be. The drainage channel would be preserved in its current state to avoid any impacts or permitting requirements, and so all the development maintains the top of the channel and the flat part of the pad, and it would be fenced for access restriction. The project would include street improvements on both frontages, which would be sidewalk, curb and gutter, and widening of the streets, realignment of the corner, relocation of the signal pole, landscaping, fencing, and lighting for the site. And as I mentioned, the commercial billboard is proposed to remain in its existing location. The first floor plan for the automotive service center is on the left. It shows the office space and the parts storage and the vehicle bays and the back part. Access into the vehicle bay garage would come directly off Grapevine via a driveway. And the parts offices, the vehicle repair offices would be accessed through a driveway with a southerly location from the building on Grapevine. The second floor of the repair service center would be open on the repair side, and then the upper part of the office space would be dedicated to parts storage. This is a cross-section of the building showing the 2 floors associated with the office and part storage on the right with the tower element, and the repair garage on the left being an open 1-story structure. The building elevations are shown here. Would use a mix of materials, masonry materials. There would be some metal awnings and wood siding. That yellow color would be a natural colored wood siding on the tower element in the southwest corner of the building. The rear elevation is facing a hillside, and the back of the adjacent commercial lot, which is shown on the 3rd layer there, and the bottom level shows the southerly face of the building. This is an elevation drawn by the architect looking northwesterly at the building from the site. The drainage channel is in front there, and the canopy that would be over the parking area where the office space is below and the part storage is above, and then the garage is in the back. You can see the tower element there on the left with the wood siding that's proposed. It would be a natural colored wood. This is the same look from the corner with the billboard. A tree would be at the corner, which is slightly occluding the view there, but that's why it's located in the front there and shaded back. And you can see that tower element there on the left side that would be in the southwest corner of the building. This is the wood material that the architect asked to show that would just cover the tower because it's not real clear in the picture. The landscape plan is shown here. It would landscape the areas around the parking lot and the automotive repair building, as well as the vehicle display area on the east side of the site. There are a number of stormwater detention basins that are spread throughout the property to collect stormwater. Landscaping is somewhat limited due to the fact that it's an automotive dealership, but there are conditions of approval to add some additional street trees on the West Vista Way frontage. The staff has reviewed the application. It's consistent with the general plan and zoning with a special use permit. It would be compatible with surrounding commercial uses based on the type of use, the conditions imposed, and the operating characteristics of the project, and it meets all of our development code standards for the building and development. Conditions of approval are included to ensure compliance with the city's lighting and noise standards for the future operation of the vehicle repair center, and the architectural design conforms to the city's guidelines for commercial buildings. The commercial billboard, I know, is an issue of concern for the commission. It certainly was for staff. But it was established on the site prior to the city's incorporation and is considered a legal non-conforming structure. Under state law, just compensation has to be paid for the forced removal of a billboard, and a challenge can be made by both the owner and lessor of the billboard if the city requires its forced removal without just compensation. The city does not know the net present value of the billboard, and so to determine what that would be in order to compensate the owner for that is unknown at this time. And so absent any financial commitment by our city council, the staff is not in a position to recommend removal of the billboard as part of the special use permit application. And with that, staff's recommending that you grant a site development plan. I apologize for the typo there. Tentative parcel map and special use permit for the Automotive Service Center and expanded used car dealership at 129 Grapevine Road, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Conley. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Looney?
Thank you. John, is there any city policy that prevents the applicant to build a bridge across that waterway if they desired?
No, we did look at a preliminary conceptual design to put a bridge over the channel that was evaluated by the owner, but there are permitting issues that arise from putting a structure, over the channel, and potential concerns both cost-wise and jurisdictionally, permitting-wise, that I think prohibited that from moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kramer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions, Mr. Conley. One, going back to that same area that Commissioner Looney was talking about. So if you park over there, in order to get to the other side, because you need to pick up some parts for a car or something, you have to walk then down Vista Way and make a right onto Grapevine and then through.
So let's get back to the site plan here. So you're indicating that if you were a customer that parked at the existing dealership.
No, if on this plot here on the, would it be on the east side of the Creekway,
Okay.
parking there, correct?
No, actually there would be, that's a vehicle display only area. And if
Okay.
you note on the site plan, it's hard to see here, there's bollards that would be at that driveway on West Vista Way. And we specifically prohibited any public access into that driveway because of traffic safety concerns. So it's only for vehicle display that
Okay.
the dealer could move cars in and out of that lot.
I was confused by the picture that had the two cars in it.
Oh, that's actually, you're right, that's not very clear, but in this picture,
Yeah.
these would actually be display cars, they're not customer vehicles.
Got it. Okay. And the billboard has a separate owner, correct?
I think that's a question for the property owner to answer.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no other questions.
Commissioner Jackal?
Thank you. I'm really sad about the billboard. Looking at the perspective elevation, that looks like quite a vigorous river running down there.
This was after a very heavy rain, I was told.
Well, so my concern is about danger, especially to kids that might be walking to school. How dangerous is that?
So the channel that's there has been there in its current form for a long time. There's certainly some danger involved, I guess, in terms of the fact that it's an open channel. They are proposing some fencing along the side, which is shown here on the one side, but we require them to fence, both sides of the channel
Okay.
with just some kind of a barrier that would, notify people to stay out. If the commission wants some more substantial fencing in there because of concerns about safety, that's certainly something that you can condition tonight.
Well, I tried to reach someone who lives on Grapevine to find out, do kids walk along there to school? And I couldn't, and so I don't know. Do you?
It's probably a good question for the applicant, since his dealership's across the street, to see if there's a lot of pedestrian traffic there. I don't see much, but I don't travel West Vista Way a lot.
Okay, thank you.
The school is interior, so students are going to be traveling north to go to school at Greek.
Okay.
Commissioner Garrettson?
So going from the east side, Mr. Conley, to the west side of this, you'd have to walk down to Vista Way and around. And that's a standard 5-foot sidewalk, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And there would be a fence along Vista Way that would prevent somebody from getting into the channel. So there'd be fenced all the way along Vista Way, correct?
That is my understanding. We should clarify that with the ownership as well.
Okay. And they'd be required to put sidewalks all along Vista Way and all along Grapevine, correct?
That's included in the conditions, correct.
So that should improve safety for the schools that are around there to have those extra sidewalks and the fencing. Thank you.
Mr. Conley, in the staff report, under the existing commercial billboard discussion, it says just compensation, halfway through the paragraph, it says just compensation for the owner of the billboard would be based on the net present value of advertisement revenue over time, less costs, and compensation to the lessor would be based on the net present value of the lease payments received for the billboard. And we don't have any of that information, do we?
That's correct. We do not.
Okay, all right. Okay. I have a real concern about that, and so I'm going to need some more information. I only have one speaker slip, and it's from Sue Dorset, but I don't think she's the applicant, so.
The applicant is here tonight. He can certainly speak on his behalf. He may not have filled out a speaker slip if you'd like to hear from him.
Okay. Concerning speaker slips, apparently we did run out, but we have replenished, so if you want to address the commission, they are available now. So could we have the applicant come and address some of the issues that have come up this evening?
I'm Gary Seward, the architect and applicant. This is Mehdi, the owner and operator.
Good evening.
Good evening. We had a number of questions for the applicant. Who'd like to start? Commissioner Garrettson?
Yes, my first question would be fencing all the way around both sides and along Vista Way, correct?
That's correct.
And what kind of fencing would that be and how high would it be?
It's probably only about 4 foot what we're proposing right now. It's more of a decorative fence. Right now, it's certainly.
I'm
chain
sorry,
link
could you
fence.
step closer to the
Yeah,
mic?
right now, it's proposed to be a 4 foot decorative fence with kind of a rope and piling because we wanted to not screen the cars because the idea is to sell cars. Currently, it's got a fence all the way around it, a chain link fence that's 6 feet tall, and so there's nobody that goes through there now.
Is 4 feet enough to protect it from kids walking to school?
Yeah.
It's a rope?
I believe
I'm
it is.
sorry, I missed that part.
I believe it is because the current, the existing dealership right now, we have a landscape in the front, and we do have actually in there, which was built about 12 years ago, was only 3 feet. Now we're adding another feet, would be 4.
So let me get this straight. So there is no protective fencing around this channel. It's just a decorative rope?
Correct. If you look at the landscape plan, you'll see the detail on L1.
Sheet L1 has a depiction of it. It's basically a post that has a 2-inch diameter rope that runs through a hole in the post and connects to the next post, and they're about 8 feet on center. So there's a front and side elevation for the fence shown.
Okay.
From the staff perspective, we feel like a barrier is appropriate there, and we're okay with the rope fence concept, but if you want to see something more than that, we can certainly ask for that.
Okay. Commissioner Garrettson, you're right? Okay. Commissioner Bell?
Thank you, Chairman. Is there water in that channel ever? Is that something that sits there, or is it rare when the 100-year flood comes?
Very, very little on the bottom. It's just going to get, I mean, it doesn't look like it when you see the picture at all.
The picture looks really nice. And I assume you're not planning on pumping water in there to make it look nice?
No, not.
And can you talk a little bit about any, I assume you can't add any kind of plants or anything to the channel itself. You have to leave that alone.
That's
Can you
correct.
maybe address what you plan to do around it to find the balance of making it look good, but also just making sure it's not a deep pool that anyone's going to stumble into?
What we can do is we'll leave, the bottom just, the way it is, just on the side and the top. We'll just do the landscaping, make them look nicer. Plus, with the rope, changes.
Okay. That's all.
Okay. I just wanted to address a little bit, because the Army Corps and the Fish and Game won't let us touch it. And then that's the whole reason why we couldn't put the bridge, because once you cast a shadow over that, you have to do a study and see what happens with the birds or whatever else that gets affected by the shadow. So it was turning into a 2-year, 3-year process, and the cost for it was just getting astronomical.
Okay. Commissioner Kramer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mine was just a real brief question. So the billboard is not owned by you. The billboard has a separate owner. Is that correct?
That's correct. And there was a lease between the previous owner and the owner of the billboard. When I purchased about a couple of years ago, basically, the lease, comes with it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Except for the billboard, I could support your project tonight. You've done a fine job with the architecture and the site layout, and I understand the need to avoid a 1601-4 permit, and so I appreciate that. But I see that I see here that we have an opportunity to get rid of a billboard. It's a legal nonconforming use. We don't allow them anymore in the city, and it's been there for 55 years. So, the city council apparently has not authorized any money to be spent on it, but I need some more information, I think. I think I need to understand what the value of the billboard is, what the value of the lease is, and if it is all possible that the city could abate the non-conforming use. Like I said, without the billboard, I'd be in full support of your project, but I'm really concerned that we were missing an opportunity to. I don't want to say it's a blight on the city, but it's an eyesore, and something that long ago we decided we weren't going to do anymore, and so I think it's an opportunity to get rid of it. So that's my concern. Commissioner Bill.
Thank you, Chairman. Following up on that, can I get some input from the city attorney on whether we as a commission have to use an outside standard or some objective standard when we evaluate making a decision on a non-conforming issue like the billboard, or is this something we have the authority to separate from this approval and bring at a later time? I'm just not real clear on how the two interact, because it's clearly brought up in the resolution here, but I don't understand if that's something that we approve now where our hands are tied for going forward, or if that's something we can address separately.
It'd probably be best to address it now rather than independently.
Okay.
There's no way for the Planning Commission to really address the non-conforming use separately.
Okay.
There's certain provisions regarding non-conforming uses that have really never been utilized in the city that theoretically might be available, but the issue regarding the compensation would still be the same.
And so as to the compensation, go ahead.
It would only be more complicated to wait to address the issue or consider it.
As to the compensation, the scenarios here are, would we be required in any way to look at some outside standard as to what that compensation is, as opposed to just taking the word of people giving testimony right now? Is there any requirement that we have to go outside of this hearing to find that standard and get approval from the city council to spend money on it or anything like that?
Of course, there's always an ability to negotiate a figure. So that's the way this often would occur. If it there would be two potential sources of claims. One would be from the landowner who has a lease. The more substantial claim in terms of value would very, very likely be the billboard owner. Assuming there is no negotiated value established, the method for establishing value is the eminent domain law. And so you might be familiar with that, but there's ways to access the revenues that are associated with the billboard, and then actually to use appraisers. There's professional appraisers that value these, and there would be a determination ultimately as to what the value is if there were a disagreement amongst the parties through a court proceeding. So that's the process that would be utilized. Right now, we don't know what income. What's really unknown is the income associated with the billboard company. And it's a very complicated process. I could give you more information on it, but it's a blending. It's really, you can't tie the revenues to a single billboard.
And so just following up, as I understand it, you now own the land, and with that, you took on the rights and obligations as a lessor, leasing the billboard to a billboard company that handles the advertisement. So you have some level of income of whatever it is as a lessor of the billboard. And then there's a separate company out there that's supposedly making income from advertising, marketing, and that's a separate from you. So if we were to deal with the billboard issue tonight, we could certainly negotiate with you one way or the other, high, low, whatever it is, and we could try to understand the value of your property and your lessor value of the billboard. But we don't have a way tonight to determine the value of the actual advertising of the billboard or what that third-party company who's leasing the board from his property is actually making on it, and that's the risk that we run if we were to hypothetically push against the billboard and try to remove it. At some point, the city might be faced with some kind of valuation that would be higher or lower than we expect because we just don't know at this point. So I don't have a feeling on this one way or the other. I'm just trying to understand what we can do tonight and what we know and what we don't know. I hope that helps a little bit of where we are. Thank you for the clarification.
That was a good discussion, Commissioner Bill. And I think we need to know that before we move forward. So as much as I hate to do it, I think we should continue this hearing until that information is provided to the commission. And then perhaps we can get the council to authorize financing, and we can remove the billboard, or have the billboard removed.
So for the purpose of accommodating the applicant here, it's probably worth asking if he knows what kind of time it would take him to gather that information, and maybe we could set a date to continue this hearing too.
Right. We could do it to a time certain, or we can re-advertise the hearing if it's going to take you some time to put that information together.
I'm pretty quick. I can get any information you like. You can just tell me time right now. I can provide it for you.
Excuse me. Can I get a clarification? Do you have the information from the billboard company regarding what they think the value of the billboard might be, or what income they might be generating from the billboard?
I have an idea.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. If we were able to get information from the lessor, would that alleviate the need for the city to pay for a third party if the lessor, the lessee, and the city agreed this was the set value?
If there was an agreement of all parties, then that would be satisfactory, provided that the budget was provided to pay the compensation. I think that staff is going to really need some time to look at what the income might be, what the asserted income might be actually, and do a little verification to establish what the value could be. It's really, I don't think it's going to be a matter of just accepting what's presented unless the value happens to be low.
And I guess the question is this value low, or is this a significant source of income for you? You don't have to commit to a number right now, but we're just trying to get an idea. Is this $100 a month, or is this a pretty significant lease that actually contributes?
If you like, I can give you the actual number.
That's fine. Yeah, if you would, I would appreciate it.
The reason, first, let me mention this. The reason I purchased a vehicle, since I'm in the car business, I would say vehicles. The reason I bought this land is because I have a service department just about a half a mile away from me in Emerald Drive, okay? And I like to move that to next, basically, to my dealership, and I pay rent there about $10,000. And the billboard, about the rent I collect is about almost $3,700 a month. Combine these two, basically got me to purchase this land and get a loan. Basically, we're talking right now, and be able to build it. Basically, that will pay, my loan.
So is it $3,700 or $37,000?
No, $3,700 a month I collect from the billboard company.
Okay.
And they go out there, they sell it, I would say average about $10,000, $5,000 each site. This is a trick they have. They don't do it every month. They do every 4 weeks. Usually they collect, 13 months, almost like,
Okay, so you're around 40 to 45 a year 1,000 income on the billboard.
That's correct.
And then that's supposed to supplement your construction of the new project and help pay for that. That was the idea.
That's correct.
So I'm fine with it either way. I just want to point out that I think that it's going to be a complicated issue that the city is going to have to evaluate, and the city council is going to have to make some decisions on how much money they're willing to pay to get rid of a blight. It's not as simple as moving it out of the way, but everything comes with a number, right? So it's just going to, and it's not a one-time number. It's this billboard, I assume, has a long-term lease or is there for a period of time. So now you're looking at years worth of value. So just take that into account either way, and we'll let the city council see what they have to say about it either way. But I'm certainly not against postponing for a period of time if we need to gather more information. I would just be prepared for the answer that it's going to be more complicated than we need to be.
Commissioner Carroll.
Thank you, Chairman. So if there's a number that gets established, does that necessarily require the deal to happen? Just because there's a number established, then that's still no guarantee that the transaction would happen and the billboard would come down.
The city council or the planning commission, assuming there's no appeal, could actually require the removal. But once it becomes a requirement, I don't want to, ultimately it can be enforced, but it would potentially trigger an obligatory payment. So if we can't negotiate a price, ultimately the removal could be compelled, but it would trigger a payment obligation. And I don't want to get into all the legal ramifications at this public meeting, but there's some nuances, but definitely this can be explored if that's the choice of the commission, and we could get the information, and we seemingly have some of the information already.
To answer your question, if the number is determined, that doesn't mean that the city's going to enter into a deal with the owner to remove the billboard. That would be at the city council's discretion.
Sure. And it just, I don't want to put the city in I would not want the planning commission to make a finding or to make a recommendation and then the city council, that would put the city in a position of a astronomical obligation and tied up. But at the same time, it is worth stepping back and seeing where that falls, because now's the time. We have a discretionary project in front of us to review, and once it's gone, it's gone. So, so I'm in agreement with continuing the project, unfortunately, because I really like the project. But I would ask if perhaps we could discuss any other issues, pro or con, regarding the project at this time while we have the applicant and the architect here.
Right. No, I agree. Commissioner Kramer.
I'll wait. You can take my name off the board.
Commissioner Garrison.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the applicant does not wish to remove the billboard financially.
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I purchased this land, that was a basically plan, and I did talk, and I did some investigation. They said since there is no rules and laws to take it down, I just purchased it and I'm just basically using it for service department. If they would have tell me, yes, if you buy this, when you come in get a permit, we need to bring it down, I probably wouldn't buy it, or I wouldn't negotiate it differently. That's what I even heard at the beginning.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other issues besides the billboard regarding the project? Commissioner Garrison?
Yeah, back to the fence, especially the fence along Vista Way. Let me ask this. The existing area has no fence around it, correct? Or it does have a fence around it?
It has a chain link fence on it.
Has a chain link fence. including on Vista Way, so it protects the kids. You're proposing to put a rope to protect the kids. Is that correct?
Yes, because chain link fence aren't approved in the city of Vista. That's a temporary fence.
We have a design guideline that limits fencing to wrought iron or some kind of decorative fencing.
But it doesn't limit it to a rope.
That's correct.
And I have a major concern. If you create a sidewalk, they're going to come. They're going to walk that sidewalk, and the kids are going to be basically one rope away from going over, 5 feet deep?
No, it's a channel that's at 2-to-1 slope. It's not a hazard to anyone.
How deep is it?
The bottom of the channel? Probably 6 or 7 feet, but it's not like you fall into it and you can't get out, and it's not like you can't climb around on it. It's a pretty gentle slope if you look at a 2-to-1 slope.
Okay, as I was driving
don't see a
by, I didn't
concern.
get out and look down there, so I wasn't, that's why I'm asking to get a clarification.
You know,
If you,
go ahead.
sorry. My dealership, the other side of the street, we do have a landscape in the front and a basically chain, before everybody finds it. And if you're talking about a creek, we can just basically that area do a better job, if you like. But the rope even can be changed, the chain. As far as, covering both sides, we already basically talk about that and take care of it for. It shows in a picture, if you like, and I can show it there too, but in the map shows too. The rope can be changed, the chain, no problem. If something, if you think is better safety, it's not.
But there will be landscape
Absolutely.
around both sides,
Absolutely.
including on Vista Way,
Absolutely, sir.
between the sidewalk and the channel.
Absolutely.
Yes. We can also look at fencing alternatives at the staff level if you want us to relook at the rope fence. That's not a problem. I don't know that picking out a fence type is really feasible tonight, but we can certainly relook at it.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Carroll?
Thank you, Chairman. So what I wanted to get to was the architecture. I wanted to say that I really do like the architecture. I think it's a good-looking building, and I think it's going to be a great improvement to the area. And while there's not a lot of opportunity for landscaping, I think what you have is appropriate for this type of use. So I just wanted to say that I like that architecture, and I think you did a good job with it.
So my sense from the commission is that we're going to continue this. I'd like to continue it to a date certain so we don't have to re-advertise the hearing.
After discussing it with our city attorney, we think we may need a little time to look at this, so we prefer that we just renotice it when it's ready. If we can get it done soon, we'll renotice it quickly, but we'd like the opportunity to do so if that's okay.
Commissioner Looney?
Thank you. Gary, I have one question on the color scheme. Will the existing car dealership colors be changed to match the service center?
Our colors are supposed to match the other one. It's just the rendering came out, but we're using the grays and the blue. Sorry, we're supposed to match the other one, so we're trying to use the grays and the blues, but that's the renderer came out that way.
Okay.
So we're trying to match the existing facility.
Yeah, I think it would be important to make that visual link.
Yeah, we have that with the white trim and stuff that looks just like the one we just finished.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sorry, can I ask?
Commissioner.
We just remodeled the existing building last year, because the old building was yellow, as if you remember.
Commissioner
You had
Carroll? Oh,
quite
sorry.
a challenge when you first tried to build this, didn't you?
Wasn't me, sir. At the beginning.
Yes, I remember that.
Commissioner Carroll?
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Conley, so will this review or analysis, will it include any type of preliminary feedback from City Council?
So we have to go to City Council to get feedback from them. They have the ability to appeal any decision that the commission makes, or the commission can refer a decision to them. So maybe when we have the information from the applicant, we bring it back, we can talk about what options you have.
Okay.
Good.
Well, I'm just trying to find the shortest path for the applicant, because if city council has some numbers and it's a forget it, we can't even
I
entertain
think we'll be
that,
able to
then-
get some preliminary feedback from the city manager's office before we come back
Yeah,
to you,
something
and we'll be able
along those
to
lines that
have a direction.
because at some point, we're making an effort here to do what planning commissions do, and but at some point, he needs to be able to build his project and not be held hostage by the existing billboard.
Commissioner Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just reiterate the same comment that this comes down to evaluation, and at some point the number is going to be the right number, or it's going to be too high or too low for us to make a decision. The City Council is going to have to decide what they're willing to spend on this, and there's a lot of factors that go into it. I'm sure everyone wants everything to look better, but sometimes there's a cost associated with that that's too high. So if the City Council has the ability to give numbers to the city manager and have some feedback there, I think that would save the applicant a lot of time. I just don't want to get in a loop where we come back and get stuck in the same pattern and then have to go to the City Council and come back again. So if we can avoid that, that would be beneficial. Thank you.
Agree. Before we move along too much further, I do have a speaker slip from Sue Dorset. Yes, did you want to speak on the project? Come.
Thank you.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Sue Doucette. I live at 123 South Beaumont Lane here in Vista. And I really have no opinion either for or against the project. The reason I came was I had some questions. My dad built the market just to the east of the property in the early 60s. It's Food Value Primo Market now. And when he built that, there was only the market and Carl's Tavern between Vista and Oceanside. So we've seen a ton of growth. I realize our building is old, and I've been in contact with the engineering department. Unfortunately, I can't do anything with the property as long as my mother is still alive. So that's off the table. The one thing I was concerned about was the culvert. I know that's been an issue for years, even when my dad was thinking of developing that property. As far as the billboard, we had a sign on the roof of our market that we were not given a choice. It was pretty much take it down or else, and we did that at our expense, and that was a few years back. But the other thing, and I'm sure that you're aware because you have an automotive repair shop now, but a friend of mine, I don't know when your building plans were drawn up, but she made it clear, she's in the automotive industry, and in January the state came in with really severe environmental requirements. She printed out all the requirements and copies and said, give it to them. I'm sure you'll make sure that everything's above board and all the storage tanks are where they're supposed to be. And anyway, so I really have no problem with the project. Like I said, I just had a couple of questions. I basically came tonight just to be nosy and see what it's going to look like.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I have no other speaker slips for this project. My sense is that we should continue it. Staff has said that they need time and they want to re-advertise. So could we hear a motion to continue the project to get the financials on the billboard? Commissioner Carroll?
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue the project to date uncertain, pending review of the financial information that would facilitate the removal of the billboard.
Very good. Commissioner Jackal? That's okay. We've got a motion and a second. Commissioner Garrison?
I would like to see more on the fencing, especially along Vista Way. Can we put that as a part of the motion that staff or the applicant come back with a better idea of the fencing, especially on Vista Way. I'm really concerned if there's a 5-foot drop there, students walking along the sidewalk could be dangerous.
We can bring back some fencing. That's not a problem.
Okay. Fencing or landscaping combination.
All right. We good? Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to continue the project to, and so cast your vote. Gotta press the button. And the motion passes unanimously. So work with John, bring him the financial information. We'll touch base with the city manager's office and council, see where we're at. If the council is interested in helping you pay for the removal of the billboard, then we've got a project. Okay, thank you. Otherwise, a great project. So, all right. Are we ready to move on to our presentation on the Climate Action Plan? Okay, very good. Mr. Connolly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This is an update on our Climate Action Plan update. One of my many projects I'm currently working on. This is, the CAP, as you know, is a mitigation measure that we were required to adopt in 2012 when we updated our general plan to mitigate for greenhouse gases that occurred as a result of growth that is occurring from our general plan. So we had a mitigation to prepare a CAP. We completed it in 2013. We have an active climate action plan that the city has adopted, and we're in the process of updating it. So we came to you earlier this year to talk about that. I'm just going to give you an update. We've had several community meetings since that time. We've gathered a lot of public input. So my plan was just to kind of go through where we've gone, the input we've gotten, and then take any feedback from the commission or comments on what we heard from the public before we present this to the City Council later this year, most likely in August. So the current CAP, as I mentioned, is completed. It was adopted by the Council in 2013. The plan addresses emissions from community and municipal activities, complies with AB 32 state law, allows tiering and streamlining for environmental review, which we rely on when we bring projects before the Commission, and it helps achieve several of our general plan goals. The scope of the process included a baseline emissions inventory, which we've completed, and I'll go through. We modeled business as usual emissions. In other words, if we don't change anything, where we're going to go, and we've modeled that for future years, 2020, 2030, and 2035. And then we've established recommended targets that are based on state legislation of where we need to get to. And so the process we're in right now is to review our measures that we will have to adopt in order to meet those reductions that we have established goals for. And so the community meetings that we held were to gather that input from the public as to what we should be considering and what we should be prioritizing. Following this process, we'll prepare a plan that will include an implementation and monitoring report and identify funding sources, and that'll involve several steps that I'll talk about. And our purpose here in updating the plan is not only to bring the city into conformity with new state law, but to provide consistency with other plans in the region for Sandag when they update their transportation plan next year. The public asked a lot of questions about the decision-making process and how this works. The community meetings were held to inform the staff recommendations that we will be bringing before the Commission. The Commission, as you know, makes formal recommendations to the City Council, but the Council is the final decision-making body for this document, and so the recommendations that we heard from the public may not all get into the document, depending on the budget and the will of the City Council to implement the plan. And then, as you know, the City Council directs staff regarding budget positions and all policy decisions such as the CAP and its implementation. So with respect to the inventory, this graph shows our current inventory. We're using 2012 to 2014 were our model years. I'm not going to get into all the technical numbers. There were 7 emission categories that were looked at, which are areas that generate greenhouse gas emissions. The chart on the right is pretty indicative of the major sources of those emissions. The on-road transportation is the biggest contributor, which is the blue pie, half the pie chart. It's 49% of our emissions. And electricity is the orange, which is 31%. So electricity and on-road transportation combined consume or generate 80% of our GHG emissions, and those are the areas we're really the most focused in getting some reductions. So these are projections and our inventory years showing our emissions. As you can see, in 2012 and 2014, our emissions numbers actually go down. That's a result of the state and federal efforts that are underway through clean air programs that are being implemented for transportation, electric vehicles, solar incentives. All the state mandates and incentive programs that are currently underway are going to result in a reduction that we're seeing trending right now. However, around 2020, between 2020 and 2030, the growth, the population growth that's planned to occur locally will increase those emissions and will continue to trend up after 2030. So the state has several targets that they've established. The first was Assembly Bill 32, which says we have to meet 1990 levels by 2020. Following that was Senate Bill 32, which says we have to get to be 40% below 1990 levels by 2030. And then there was an executive order by the governor's office that says we have to be 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. So those are fairly high, lofty goals, I would say, to achieve. Although we've seen some trending down, there's a significant reduction that's needed to occur in order to meet those standards. But our plan has identified what those standards mean to Vista in terms of what reductions we have to make between now and 2030 and between now and 2035. Just to note that under our current model, we would hit the 2020 goal just by the state and federal mandates that are in place. So we sort of seem like we're going to get there for 2020, but for the future years out in the plan, those target years are 2030 and 2035. We still have a lot to reduce. So this graphic shows the business as usual graph, which is the top of the orange line. You can see it trends down and then trends back up. This is the emissions that we did for our inventory and as we move out in future years. The colored lines indicate the state and federal programs that are underway to reduce emissions, and so those capture those reductions. And then there's a gap there between the green line, which is what our goal is, and what our business as usual model would show. So that local gap is what our climate action plan for Vista has to achieve, and that's what we're basing our numbers on in terms of what we're going to generate and what we're going to have to mitigate for in the future. So in rough numbers, the local gap in 2030 is about 54,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. In 2035, it's about 121,000. Just for rough comparison, our current cap gets us to a reduction of about 30,000. So we have to get to roughly twice that in 2030 and 4 times that in 2035. So when we reached out to the public, at this point in the presentation, we asked people to evaluate what measures we're going to be looking at, and they were given an opportunity to vote on those measures. So I'm going to cover the measures that we walked through with the public, and then I'll give you a little feedback about what we got. The black text indicates measures that are already in our plan. The blue is a little hard to see between blue and purple, but the blue indicates measures that we've added for the public's consideration based on input that we got in some early community meetings. And then we had write-in comments that were also included, and those were all included in your packet. So in the area of municipal operations, it's not an area where we get a lot of reduction because it's just city facilities and operations. The biggest thing here was CAP implementation, and that's having a staff person that monitors and oversees it, that's assigned to it and is responsible for it, and brings normal review cycles before the commission and the council to explain where we are with our implementation and what money's being spent on it, and having a more defined role. Renewable energy is any city project that would include renewable energy such as solar. We looked at commute alternatives for employees, carpooling, et cetera, and municipal recycling. Those are all things that are in our current cap. Some things that came from the public. We're greening the fleet, which is electric vehicles for city fleet vehicles, and any municipal energy project that we can conserve energy or reduce our energy usage, like efficiency improvements. Under existing energy measures, there's really a big opportunity here for savings or reductions. Looking at energy efficiency in existing buildings, this can be through some kind of evaluation of the building at the time of an improvement or a sale. Small-scale renewable energy is just solar projects, providing incentives for people to do that. One of the big measures that came out of the community meetings was a community choice energy program, and we talked about that earlier this year. This is establishing your own utility where the city can buy and sell their own energy, or as part of a joint powers association, buy and sell their own energy. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. The idea of efficient water heaters or solar water heaters in new development, tree planting and urban forest, just increasing our urban canopy. And then energy efficiency certified city staff that could help with those efficiency evaluations. In transportation and land use, another area where huge reductions are possible, but at the local level are more difficult. Access to transit, travel, commute trip reduction, smart growth being just new development near transit centers, and our bicycle master plan are all in our existing plan. Some of the things that we got out of the community meetings were requests to increase access to van pools or iCommute services, require residential EV charging be built into new homes, and build more commercial EV charging stations around commercial areas in town. Under water and waste, expanded recycling and construction debris are in our current plan. Public recommendations including reduced outdoor water landscape use and targets for that, water efficiency, improvements to homes at point of sale or ownership change, addressing construction equipment emissions, and then composting and organics recycling, which EDCO is actually working on at the local level, and the collection and reuse of gray or rainwater systems that would make that easier at a residential level. And then finally is adaptation. These are just impacts to our physical environment that could occur as a result of climate change, and those could occur to any of these resources or energy, water, biodiversity. We also promoted a green business network to the business group that we met with to try to get them more involved in or creating a committee that could focus on green initiatives for the business community. And there was a call for an awareness campaign, just more educational awareness at both the school levels and for the public in general. So as part of our outreach, we created a website, which is on the city's website. I would definitely recommend you look at it. It's very thorough. It's got all the feedback and the presentations that we provided for the 5 presentations that we gave. We reached out to the general public, to South Vista communities, to some organized climate groups, the Vista Climate Action Planners, which also wrote you a letter that's in your packet, the Townsite and Poder Popular groups, which are Spanish-speaking groups in the Townsite area, and the Business and Chamber. We had a business-focused presentation. At all those meetings, we took votes from the public on what they would like us to do or look at as part of those measures, and we also created an online survey link that people could vote online and provide their input without coming to the meetings. So in the meetings, we allowed people to vote on 6 different measures, providing their most votes or providing prioritization in terms of votes for the measures that they wanted. We had more than 100 votes collected. They're all public and uploaded on our website. There were also questions that were recorded, both verbal and those written on the board, that are going to be addressed in a frequently asked question document and will be included on the CAP website, which we're currently working on. All of the write-in suggestions that we received during the community input were recorded and were included in the staff report to the commission and also will be presented to the council. The top votes in the categories are also included in your packet. Energy and transportation were the areas that got the most focus, as well as municipal operations, adaptation, and then water and waste. The top measures that were voted on were to establish a community choice energy program, to increase our tree planting and urban forest initiatives, and to provide more staff support for the CAP at the city level. The 10 top voted measures included CAP implementation, as I mentioned, renewable energy, a CCE, tree planting and urban forest, support for transit, travel, and smart growth, our bicycle master plan, collection and reuse of gray water, water resources, composting and organics recycling, and climate change awareness. Those were all the highest vote getters from what we received from the public. And then on the right, you can see a list of the organizations that were represented in the community meetings that we held. So some of the questions that we got at the meetings: when will the CAP be implemented? Can CCE better be clarified? How often is the CAP updated? Some of these things I can answer right now. The CAP will be implemented at the time that the City Council approves the update, which we expect to take next year. We currently do have a CAP. It is being implemented. We just haven't got a lot of resources to put in to its implementation at this point, and we're working on that issue as part of the update to see what are feasible measures and what staff resources can be put into it. We expect the update to be complete next year. CCE, Community Choice Energy concept, the Planning Commission did ask for some additional input on that issue. Because it is also a financial consideration for the city, we're going to make the same presentation to the council, and assuming that the City Council is supportive of more evaluating that issue further, we'll try to bring in some professionals, experts in that area that can present to you and answer some of the more detailed questions about how it will work. The City of Solana Beach has entered into their own CCE, and so we'll be meeting with their city manager and assistant city manager at the staff level in a couple weeks to get some feedback from them on how the process has worked, and we'll be evaluating some experts in the field that can present to the commission and the council on that. How often is the CAP updated? We've done it on a 5-year cycle. We adopted it in 2013, and we've updated it this year. If funding is provided and SANDAG is supportive, as they have been this year, we could do it on a 5-year cycle. And then questions about environmental justice and social equity. So is the city spending its resources in the communities that need it the most? Those will be issues that we will address in the document, and we will have some policy considerations for how we're spending our implementation monies. There were a lot of write-in suggestions which were included in your packet. I'm not going to go through everything. Some of the things that we got frequent repeats of were complete streets and transportation initiatives that help people build sidewalks and safer transportation modes around their communities. That was particularly evident in the older parts of town where there's not a lot of sidewalks, and there was a lot more interest in awareness education campaigns and staff support for the process. So the next steps, we'll be having community meetings through July. This is the report to the commission. We'll have one more community meeting on Thursday night this week. We'll present out to the public kind of the feedback that we've gotten and take final comments. Then we'll present everything to the City Council at the end of August. We expect that to be August 28th, and get some feedback from them, and then we'll move into drafting measures and trying to prepare a plan. I imagine that as part of that process, we'll have to come back to the commission and the council to get some clarification and update you on cost, feasibility, a number of different issues that I'm sure we'll have to tackle as we get deeper into this. At the completion of that process, we'll have a draft report. We hope that's before the end of the year. We'll have a public review period, and then we'll come back for public hearings at both the commission and council probably early next year. And that completes my staff presentation, and I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Conley? Commissioner Garrettson?
Yes, Mr. Conley, could I ask if any of the following groups have been involved in discussions or will be in the future. One is Innovate 78, because as they try to attract business to the area, it would seem to me that there should be some communication between what the city's CAP program is and what impact it might have on business, maybe to adjust back and forth. The second thing is the Vista Water District. Have they provided input into what is their plan for future desal or gray water or shower to landscape? So those are just, and the power companies. Those are the three organizations that, seem to be conspicuous from their absence of the groups that have been met with.
So Innovate 78 has not specifically been approached. We did talk to the chamber, and we did meet with the chamber individually, but we'll certainly reach out. We have staff contact with them. VID has not been at the table. We can certainly talk to them as well. They are a separate agency, so I'm sure they have some of their own energy efficiency and water conservation issues. We have talked to their conservation folks, but not so much about their own facilities and their own programs, so I can do that. We did talk to Vista Unified, and I think that was based on one of the comments we got from the commission the last time we presented, and we are actually going to be able to take advantage of a number of reductions that they're implementing at their school facilities through solar programs. And then last, SDG&E, we have had frequent conversations with them. They are at the table. They have been very helpful in terms of the information they're providing, but they also, have concerns about what the city might do in terms of a community choice energy program.
What about the construction industry, especially as it relates to, how houses are built with, let's say, shower to landscape systems or, those kinds of things. Has there been discussions in that arena? Because for me to go shower and, repipe the water down for my landscaping would be cost prohibitive probably. But new construction, I don't know what kind of cost would be involved in that.
So we haven't, I guess we haven't really broached that issue with developers. My perspective is that if it were something that were recommended for inclusion in our plan, at that point we would begin talking to some developers about what the potential impact would be. We haven't gotten to that point yet. We're just kind of trying to find some direction. The city of Carlsbad actually adopted some fairly extensive requirements for new development that they're just on the verge of adopting and implementing, and so we're reporting back with them to see how that moves forward.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, this is not a public hearing, but we will take public testimony. I have over 12 speaker slips, so Ms. Chow, should we run the 3-minute timer? And our first speaker is Marta Goddard, followed by Ann Force. So if you could come and sit up close so it doesn't take long for you to get to the speaker, to the microphone, that will be helpful.
Good evening. My name is Marta Gare, and I am member of Universidad Popular. I am here to show my support for the Climate Action Plan, and I think it's very important for the city of Vista to protect our environment from contamination. But the city should also listen to the residents and their needs. I am in favor of more green space, more trees around the city, more sidewalks, and I also believe that solar energy should be promoted in apartments, complex, and houses where residents rent, not just in single homeowners. All these great programs need to come to this number 1 where Latino community residents live. Thank you very much.
Okay, very good. Ann Force, followed by Lisa Wellens.
Hi, Ann Force. I live in Vista. My husband and I installed solar panels on our home in 2003. It cost us $9,000, and the state kicked in $9,000. And since then, for the first 8 years, we paid $5 a month for electricity for the distribution. And then for about the last 5 years, we've paid $10 a month for electricity. And I figure that total comes to, we've paid $1,320 for electricity for the last 15 years. And if we had paid $100 a month for the last 15 years, we would have paid $18,000 for electricity. And I'm so excited to see solar panels on a solar parking structure at St. Francis Church. And I think it would be good to find out what that investment was and what they figure will be the payoff time. And I also saw 2 municipal solar installations in Oceanside, one at the El Corazon Senior Center and another one at the maintenance area for Oceanside. It's between Melrose and Temple Heights on Oceanside Boulevard. So I hope the City of Vista will learn more about the cost and benefit of these new solar generators. And thank you all for being here.
Very good. Lisa Wellens, followed by Rebecca Matsidi.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Wellens, 410 Alvarado Terrace. I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak about the Climate Action Plan update, and I want to thank the staff for their outreach meetings where I was able to go and learn more about the process and give feedback. So the measures in the Climate Action Plan do more than reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but can make a city more livable, and livability is good for residents and businesses. So I'm excited because we are on the verge, possibly, of doing some really great things. And tonight you'll hear support for a lot of different measures, and I support all of the above, but tonight I would like to highlight 2 areas. And the first area is electricity, which was 31% of the inventory. And CCA is a measure that has the most potential for measurable greenhouse gas emissions reductions. For example, Marine Clean Energy, the oldest CCA in California, is able to invest revenue back into the community, and this is some of what they've done. Marine Clean Energy has worked to address the specific challenges that confront historically marginalized communities within their service area in a variety of ways, such as sponsoring workforce development training, supporting local hire requirements for local renewable energy projects, reducing generation rates to save customers money, advocating for low-income customers to be excluded from the PCIA, the exit fee, offering low-income solar rebates and thereby expanding access to net energy metering, providing energy efficiency installations in affordable housing units, and providing energy efficiency upgrade assistance to small businesses. So these are just a few ways that CCAs can benefit reinvesting revenue and still provide stable low rates. And the other section of the greenhouse gas inventory was transportation at 49%. And since it accounts for almost half our greenhouse gas emissions, we will have to address alternatives to car trips so that we can move an increasing percentage of residents out of their cars for their commutes, as well as provide more access and infrastructure to areas of the city where transit is already their primary mode of transportation. Walk, bike, and transit options will need to be expanded in order for that to happen. the next generation doesn't want to drive as much, and the Gen Xers and the baby boomers are getting older, and we don't want to drive as much either. Also, housing and transportation should be developed together, TOD, smart growth, and complete streets. All of these measures add to Vista's livability. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca Mancini, followed by Oglunda Diaz. I'm probably messed that up completely, but Mrs. Diaz, Mrs. Diaz. Right. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Medici. I live in Cabrillo Circle, pretty close to here. And first, I'd like to thank John Conley and also Electra and everybody on staff. They've done an amazing job with these workshops. I've gone to several of them, and they've just really explained a lot of things that I didn't really know that much about. One thing I think I learned, though, from John's presentations is it looks great at first insofar as we will meet the climate action plan, but then pretty quickly things are going to go downhill if we don't take some pretty serious measures, including most likely community choice energy, because that's a pretty big area. 31% of is energy, and I know there'll be a little bit of outlay to begin with, but it will be really, really worth the investment, because a lot of cities that have done it have ended up with a lot of extra resources after they start out the plan. So I really want you to consider community choice energy is pretty important, and I'd like you not to kick the can down the road, because if we say, well, things are still okay now, pretty quickly it's not going to be okay, because I can see our population is growing here. So that's mainly my concerns, and thank you. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. Ms. Diaz, followed by Juan Ramirez.
Well, good evening, commissioners. I'll be taking my grandma's space because she doesn't feel well. My name's Jacqueline Techi. I'm 18 years of age. I'm a recent Vista High School graduate. I would like you to prioritize a vulnerability study to be carried out that demonstrates vulnerability to the effects of climate change, but that also includes socio-demographic vulnerabilities such as levels of income, age, level of education. I ask us of the above because we know climate change does not affect everyone equally. There are some who have more resources than others to defend themselves from change in an effort to advance an equitable plan, we must give priority to those with fewer resources. Thank you so much for your time and attention tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Ramirez? Followed by Margarita Suso.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Juan Ramirez. I'm the Senior Project Manager for Circulate San Diego. We are the regional leading organization that advocates for and promotes for livable and healthier communities. And the reason we are here involved is because as part of the Healthy Cities, Healthy Residents campaign from the County of San Diego, we are providing the technical assistance to the Vista Community Clinic, and we have been involved in this process of the Climate Action Plan update. It was very interesting to see John's presentation, where it was showed that 49% of the pollution is generated by on-road transportation, and which personally, or as part of the organization, and based on what I have heard from the community, there needs to be a little bit more focused on that specific issue or that specific source of pollution. As it was mentioned, bringing more TODs or transit-oriented designs, better sidewalks, better opportunities for people to be out there and actually take into or consider as an option to walk, bike, take public transit and not just, let's say, trying to bring green or electrical cars. The other thing it's that I have heard it's have the city to have a better communication or better collaboration with the North County Transit District, maybe to have better ways to have better bus shelters, which is something that people really feel that they should have. And the bus shelters, I know that they cost, but someone mentioned here the business association or the Chamber of Commerce. Many times they would be willing to let's say, make a donation, have businesses, I don't know, how would you say, what's the word? Well, basically pay for the shelters, and that will generate more, promote more, and encourage more people to actually take public transportation and drive less. One more thing, it's explore the potential of having bike shares or scooter share programs. Like I don't know if you have gone to downtown San Diego, City of Imperial Beach, National City. They have brought partnerships with with companies that they have a bunch of bicycles throughout the city, and people are using them. Maybe just exploring that option, not necessarily saying that that's something that you should do, but exploring or looking at those kind of options, as well as multimodal transportation options. There's a very good example in the city of Monrovia, here close to Los Angeles, where Lyft and Uber and other companies have worked with the city to promote more transportation options. So thank you, and hopefully more can be done to improve active transportation. Thank you.
Super. Thank you. Ms. Souza? SUAZO. Yes, come.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Rosa Flores. I'll be interpreting for my colleague Margarita Sauso. She's a little bit nervous, but we think, as you outlined in your original CAP, community engagement is incredibly important to the whole process. And so some folks are here in front of you for the first time, and it's really exciting. So I'll hand it over to Margarita.
Mi nombre es Margarita Suazo y vivo en Vista. Mi prioridad es de que haya más mejores banquetas y más rutas de camiones y árboles. Esa es mi prioridad. Muchas gracias por su atención.
So her name is Margarita, and she is a resident of Vista, and her top priorities are sidewalks and increasing public transit routes and trees, adding more trees in the city. Thank you so much for your time.
Good. Gracias. Guion is the last name? Is Guion? G-I... That was you, and you were with her? Thank you. You might want to sit close. Followed by Maria Delgado. That one I got.
I'll be the interpreter for the resident speaking.
My name is Enriqueta Gijón. Vivo en Vista por 18 años y mi prioridad es de que si pueden hacer un stop, ¿cómo se dice? Que pasan muy rápido los carros. un tope porque yo vivo cerca del staff y los carros pasan muy rápido y ha habido muchos accidentes ahí cerca de mi casa. Una vez tiraron un poste, otra vez se fueron en la cerca de mi casa y es que está muy reducido allí, pasan muy rápido los carros.
Good evening. My name is Enriqueta Gijon. I've lived in Vista for 18 years, and my interest is around traffic calming measures and related to the transportation measures. So I live in an area where there's high-speed traffic, and there's been a lot of accidents because of the traffic volume. Enriqueta lives just a block from North Santa Fe, and it's a very busy corridor, and so she is asking for traffic calming measures so that a lot of the accidents, like knocking over poles and people knocking over fences, can be improved in her area.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Delgado, followed by Angelina Cruz.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es María Delgado y bueno, mi prioridad es de que se necesitan más banquetas en la ciudad de Vista porque muchos niños que yo he mirado caminan, que vienen de la escuela, no hay banquetas y han sido atropellados por falta de estas banquetas y también para más árboles y transporte público para la ciudad, para tener menos contaminación. Gracias.
Hello, my name is Maria Delgado, and my priorities are around sidewalks. I witness a lot of children walking around Vista to and from school, and it's not very safe to walk, and so having sidewalks would encourage walkability in the city. Additionally, it's also important for me to have trees to decrease the level of pollution for the city and increasing public transit so that more folks can ride.
Thank you. Ms. Cruz, followed by Alicia Moreno, I think.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Angelina Cruz y mi prioridad es que haya calles limpias, banquetas, que haya sombra para los autobuses y que haya Ay, ¿qué más pues? Está bien, dígamela a mí. Oh, está bien. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Okay, my name is Angelina Cruz, and she's also a Vista resident, and her priorities are clean streets and improved sidewalks to increase walkability, also shaded bus stops to increase the riding of public transit, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Ms. Moreno, followed by Marcela Lopez.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Alicia Moreno, soy residente de Vista, soy miembro de Universidad Popular y estoy aquí porque estoy a favor del medio ambiente. Soy discapacitada de tercera edad. Me gusta caminar y por la calle donde vivo por la calle de Los Ángeles Drive, cerca de la Melrose. Y está un pedazo de calle que no han terminado y hay mucha hierba crecida con espinas. No se puede caminar. Y es un área donde pasan los niños a la escuela, caminamos gentes mayores. Y es un bloque, el que está con hierba muy crecida que tapa la banqueta. Y hay muchos problemas para caminar. Gracias.
Thank you. She was writing a whole bunch, so.
I'm sorry?
No, you were writing very quickly, so
Oh, yes.
she had a lot to say.
My name is Alicia, and I am in favor of our environment. And she has a disability, and she's a part of the senior community. And she is concerned about issues of walkability. So where she lives near Los Angeles Drive, close to Melrose. And there's an unfinished area. I guess there's construction in the area. And projects like that and places like that makes it really hard for folks to walk, including children and seniors. And so the area has a lot of overgrown bushes and there's lots of obstruction in the right-of-way. And so it doesn't allow for folks to walk within the city. And so her priority is around walkability.
Very good. Marcela Lopez? Name and address for the record because you didn't put it on the slip.
Okay, my name is Marisela Lopez. I'm here because I'm leader for my community. It's the barrier for my community is the language. I need to explain, listen, how is needed in my community or all people. Because I need this security stop paradas de bus. Paradas de bus. Autobuses. Autobuses. Paradas.
Oh, stop.
Bus stop. I need more security because it's near to the street. Sorry, I tried my English. Okay, mejor en español. En lo personal, he implementado en hacer algo para el cambio climático, como limpiar las calles, hablar con mi comunidad que podemos hacer cambios también nosotros, que ustedes nos escuchen y que nos puedan ayudar para que todos estos cambios se puedan hacer más que nada para seguridad de todos, porque lo que es el cambio climático nos importa mucho. Para todos es muy importante. El agua, árboles, banquetas, luz, ojalá y todo esto se ha atendido porque hemos puesto muchas cosas que queremos que le den seguimiento. Es todo, gracias.
All right, I'm writing as fast as I can. So at the beginning, Marisela I just want to reiterate a little bit about the importance around improvements for sidewalks and bus stop and just public transit infrastructure. And she also wanted to note that she does her part as an individual to preserve the environment, such as trash cleanups with her community, but there's more that needs to be done, and that responsibility falls on decision makers like yourselves. And so we need you to give your input around the issues of water, trees, and energy. And we need you to follow up with what the community is bringing to light. All of those things are important.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Fortuna Martinez? Yeah. Sorry. Between reading the writing and...
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Fortunato Martínez y no vivo aquí en Vista, pero ando casi lo más seguido aquí en Vista y lo que he notado que hay bastantes conductores que andan manejando a veces hasta quemando llanta en horas de que los niños están en clases y pues me gustaría que hubiera más seguridad para esos estudiantes. Gracias.
Good evening. My name is Fortunato Martinez, and although I don't live here in Vista, I spend a lot of my time here in Vista. And one of my concerns is around managing traffic and calming traffic, because I've often seen a lot of children walking or just out in the community, and then folks are totally violating the speed limits. Burning rubber is the term that he used, and so it's really important for the safety of our children to consider this. Thank you.
Maria Martinez.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es María Martínez. Yo no vivo aquí en Vista, pero frecuentamos mucho la ciudad de Vista, y nuestra prioridad es que en la ciudad de Vista se ve mucho el vandalismo, y yo pienso que es muy peligroso para los niños que van a las escuelas. Y es todo, gracias.
My name is Maria, and my priority is around vandalism. There's a lot of vandalism that our children are surrounded by, and so this is an important issue for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Salvador Mendoza. Followed by Lutisa Lopez.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Salvador Mendoza y vivo aquí en Vista, en la calle Los Ángeles, por ahí en Las Palmas. Y pues están hablando de los árboles. Mi preocupación es que están cortando unos arbolotes como de, no sé, pues unos 3 pies o más de anchos, que ya tienen como unos 35 años que yo los vi ahí chiquitos, y los cortaron ahí en la Melrose, y la Santa Fe y la Melrose, y ahí está una callecita que no recuerdo cómo se llama, pues para la próxima vez les traigo la dirección. Y pues esa es una preocupación que muy grande, porque pues, esos arbolitos dan mucha sombra y dan aire y atraen el agua por abajo también. Pues, y tocante a las banquetas también, pues yo ando mucho en bicicleta y hay veces que pues no puede uno caminar también porque vienen las personas ahí por la banqueta y ya uno a la calle no se puede meter porque está muy angostita y pues se mete uno a la banqueta, pero a veces vienen las personas y yo me tengo que bajar a veces, y en lugar de bajarme a veces me caigo porque pues ya como ya estoy grande, a veces me he caído, y pues sí, que la banqueta fuera un poquito más anchita, o no sé si se pudiera o que hubiera, ¿verdad? Y pues está bien, a ver qué se puede hacer un día. Pues yo, si me dieran permiso un día, o si Dios me diera licencia, un día yo voy a cortar esas hierbas que le estorban aquí a la señorita o a la señora que dijo. Yo sé guiriar y sé de todo ese trabajo, a ver si nomás que me den una licencia también, porque si no, pues cómo voy a hacerlo. Y pues porque siempre he andado manejando sin licencia, pues para qué voy a echar mentiras, ¿verdad? He andado manejando sin licencia y ahora ya quiero agarrar licencia porque pues los tickets ya los pagué, ahora ya no quiero seguir pagando. Apenas andaba en una bicicleta de motor y me pasé un altito y pues me dieron un ticket de $500, casi 500, y por sacarla querían otros 450. Total que pues ya me hicieron una bajita y me salió como en 500 por todo. Pero fíjese, y luego a los pocos días de que me dieron el ticket y que pagué todo eso, me la robaron en la salsa. Yo no sé si estaría bien que la seguridad o la policía, ¿verdad?, que hubiera más seguridad allí, porque pues todos estamos viendo que por ahí hay mucha vagancia, muchos delincuencia y eso. se arriman ahí a ver qué se llevan. Y pues yo llegué allí y como la dejé sin cadena, pues se la llevaron. Mi bicicletita y ahí está llorando y ando ahí a pie o en otra bicicleta que no es lo mismo. Y pues discúlpenme y muchas gracias y gracias por atenderme.
¿Se quiere esperar? ¿Cómo se llama?
Salvador Mendoza.
Salvador. Good evening. My name is Salvador, and there was a lot that he said. We're starting off with trees. So Salvador is a resident of Townsite, and he lives near the West Los Angeles, first he brought up trees and the fact that there are some trees nearby where he lives that are being cut down. These trees have provided shade for a really long time. He's seen them since they were very small, and now they're being taken off. And these trees are at Melrose in Santa Fe. These trees provided a lot of shade, and they cleaned the air, and they also, he says, filter water in the area, so he's really concerned about those trees. In addition, he rides bikes a lot, and he has personally experienced trouble when he's riding his bike. He often has to choose between riding on a very dangerous street because there's no protected bike lanes, or riding on the sidewalk, and it often makes it a little bit difficult when a lot of folks are walking on the sidewalk. And so he has lots of personal experience. He's fallen multiple times, and he's a senior, and he's fallen multiple times trying to get to and from places on his bike. He's also concerned about public safety issues. His bike was stolen recently, and now he has to walk to most places. That's his main mode of transportation. And he also noted that if God grants him the will, that he'd love to help clean up some of the right-of-ways that folks have brought up, have been issues with, the weeds and the overgrown bushes.
Los árboles que cortaron estaban así de ganchos, mira señorita.
So he's saying that the trees were really wide. The trunk was about this wide.
Como 3 pies, tienen
Yeah.
como 35 años.
And they were 35 years
Andaba
old.
buscando los arbolitos aquí en el teléfono, pero no les sé.
So-
Otra vez que venga voy a traerlos.
See, 35-year-old trees. So
Gracias.
we're
Very
good.
good.
Gracias.
Thank you. Ms. Lopez, followed by Risa Flores.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Leticia, soy residente de Vista. Llevo viviendo 8 años en Vista, muy diferente a donde vivía antes. Y yo camino porque no sé manejar, no tengo carro, tengo la necesidad de caminar y llevo a mis hijas a la escuela, no hay banquetas, es insegura la calle para caminar, que a veces tengo que caminar en la calle porque los carros están parqueados donde debería haber banquetas y tengo que caminar en la calle. Y las escuelas, vivo en 540 Raintree Drive, en Townside, y la escuela elementary para mis niñas casi son 2 millas la escuela para que ella vaya a la escuela. Y para la middle school es más de 2 millas. Y si se van caminando, uno busca cómo llevarlos. Yo pienso que eso es mucha contaminación para el medio ambiente en las escuelas, porque como no tienen transportación, hay mucho tráfico en la ciudad por todas las escuelas que no hay transportación en las horas de salida, de entrada de los niños. Hay demasiado tráfico en las escuelas y yo pienso que si reducieran eso también mejoraría el cambio climático y pues que no hay banquetas. Ahí en mi vecindario quiero salir a caminar en las tardes cuando ya no hace mucha calor, pero tengo que a veces bajarme afuera de donde las entradas de la casa, bajarme porque los carros están parqueados en la banqueta y es difícil caminar así para ir a la tienda. Tengo que batallar porque no hay banquetas y pienso que es también motivo porque mucha gente no camina, porque no hay banquetas para caminar. Para ir a la farmacia no hay banquetas, que no son lugares tan lejanos y uno puede caminar, pero a veces uno se detiene y espera hasta que el esposo esté para darnos
el ride y llevarnos porque no hay banquetas para caminar y cuando uno tiene bebés tiene que andar con las carriolas batallando porque no hay banquetas, uno no puede caminar. Una vez me pasó que fui a la escuela, tenía que ir a la escuela de mi niña y como tengo un bebé me compré una carriola de correr porque no hay banquetas y no tengo que batallar, estar reempujar la carriola porque nomás no camina, se amarran las llantas y no caminan con la tierra y las piedritas. Y agarré el bus en Santa Fe y estaba batallando porque según yo compré mi carriola para caminar más bien en la calle porque no hay banquetas. Y el problema que tuve, que me llamaron la atención, porque llevaba una carriola grande y para meterla en el bus no hay espacio. Y se me hace difícil eso que pasé, porque dije, no puedo necesito una carriola grande, pero para agarrar transporte público no la puedo usar porque no tengo espacio para llevarla ahí, no hay espacio. Y yo pienso que muchas madres como yo les pasa lo mismo y eso es muy difícil para salir a caminar y no usar vehículos.
Could you ask her to summarize? It's because you have to tell us what she said.
All right, so I'm going to try to do justice. She shared some really powerful experiences. So her name is, this is Leticia, and she's been a Vista resident for 8 years. Her main mode of transportation is walking because she can't drive. She's responsible for taking her 2 daughters to school, but she finds that it's not safe to walk. One of her daughter's elementary school is over 2 miles, a 2-mile walk, and the other goes to a middle school, and it's also over 2 miles. They often have to walk or... So, it's a 2-mile distance, and they have to walk in order to get to school because there's few transportation options. There is no transportation for students currently that's comprehensive, and Vista is congested. There's lots of traffic. It's really difficult to walk, and so she believes that by reducing this traffic and congestion and offering different solutions to transportation, it would help the city reach their greenhouse gas emission target because it would make it easier for people to walk and for people to use alternate modes of transportation. In the evenings, she likes to go for walks, but she can't because there's cars parked where there should be a right-of-way for pedestrians. She had a really, she's always had to struggle as far as transportation. There's very little infrastructure in place to support her getting around. Even things like going to a pharmacy, which isn't very far from where she lives, but in order, it's not safe to walk, and there's no infrastructure for her to walk and get what they need. These places are not far away from where she lives. It's just the infrastructure is not there, and it doesn't support pedestrians. She had an incident where she bought one of those. She uses a stroller, as many mothers do that walk, and the stroller was a runner's stroller, and she was so proud and happy that she purchased a stroller because it was supposed to make it easier for her to get around. But when she tried to take the bus, she was told that she couldn't take her stroller on board because it was too bulky. And so what is she supposed to do when there's no other modes of transportation? And she is cognizant of the fact that many other mothers in the area also have struggled similarly. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Risa Flores?
Is it orange?
Yes.
That's mine.
That's you.
Rosa.
Excellent.
Yes. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Rosa Flores, and I'm here on behalf of Vista Community Clinic, but also on behalf of Poder Popular. I have the honor and the privilege of working alongside some of the most resilient residents in this city. And we've also been working alongside some of your amazing staff, John and your contractor, Electra from Rincon Consultants. And I've been helping connect residents and city staff and electeds around the issues of the Climate Action Plan, particularly around transportation and increasing walkability, increasing access to public transit, increasing green space, community gardening, improving public infrastructure, and a number of other things. And throughout the work, we've had a chance to revise the Climate Action Plan thoroughly, the measures, and we've made some official recommendations as a collective. I've prepared some packets. I'm sure some of you had time to read it. If you haven't yet, I encourage you to do so. It really is a comprehensive letter and offers and recommends solutions that center around those that are most directly and heavily impacted by environmental degradation. And so I'll hand these off to John, who might be able to. I understand I don't know if I can hand you things directly. But in the packets, you'll find the letter of recommendations that we wrote as a collective. We also worked alongside organizations like Universidad Popular, the National Latino Research Center. We worked along with Circulate San Diego. We worked with our Health and Human Services Agencies partners. We did extensive research on climate action and the solutions that Vista could adopt. And so we encourage you to look at that. There's also data around traffic, deaths due to traffic, and what we could do to improve walkability, again, particularly for those that have no other option than to walk because they don't have a license or for multiple other barriers. So I encourage you to look at that. Please use myself, our residents, and the rest of our team as a resource. We're happy to meet with you in person to talk about those documents on a deeper level. You're welcome to come to a coalition that has formed because of this issue and that's taking on the Climate Action Plan. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And thank you for coming and translating for us tonight. So, Socorro Ramez. Followed by Susan Davidson. I got that one.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Socorro Ramírez, tengo 26 años viviendo en Vista. Soy estudiante de Universidad Popular y miembro del Grupo de Poder Popular. Hoy quiero dar las gracias al miembro de la comisión por hacer el esfuerzo de los miembros de las comunidades afectadas por el cambio climático. Quisiera apoyar el plan climático. A mí me gustaría que hagan más o que hubiera más transportes públicos de diferentes rutas, porque yo trabajo en diferentes áreas y me cuesta trabajo de agarrar una sola ruta. Otra de las cosas es que también las paradas de los buses no tienen sombra algunas y también asientos para la gente que se siente para esperar el bus, y mejorar las banquetas para que la gente camine más tranquilo y salga más a caminar en vez de usar transporte, y sembrar más árboles, que es lo que nos ayudaría a bajar las emisiones. Gracias.
Good evening. My name is Socorro Ramirez, and I've lived in Vista for over 26 years. I'm a member of Poder Popular and Universidad Popular, and I'm here in support of the CAP, and I want to say thank you for supporting the communities that are represented here and what they've been sharing about how they're affected by environmental change. I would like you to prioritize public transit. I often have to commute everywhere. I have to drive my own vehicle everywhere because there's not enough public transit infrastructure for me to use public transit, even though I would like to. There also isn't any shaded bus stops that would encourage the use of public transit. In some bus stops, there are not even any seats for people to sit and wait for the bus. I'd also like for you to prioritize walkability and investing in better sidewalks for the safety and protection of pedestrians and our community in general. And I'd also like to encourage that you plant more trees in Vista. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Davidson?
My name is Susan Davison, and I'm a 25-year Vista resident. And I have this mad urge to ask Rosa to come stand next to me because she does such a wonderful job of concisely communicating our needs to the council, to the commission. So thank you for that. So I want to say thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak here. And I understand that you have from staff some documents in front of you. If you've looked at them or you've not looked at them, please take a look at the colors inside the documents. As John had indicated, there's some black, which was in the current CAP plan. There's some blue and there's some purple. You've had some good, vibrant public participation in this process. We're very proud of it. We've become very good friends with different groups in the city. And so pay attention to the ideas and the solutions put in that document, because we were very thoughtful about what we wanted for our city. And those colors will tell you what we're thinking. And this is a multi-year document. The CAP plan, like John said, is going to be 5 years. Okay, this is not a one-year document. So, and also we have high standards that we're going to have to meet for greenhouse gases. We'll get away with it a little bit for a while, but moving ahead, we're not going to get away with it. So one of the first things I want to ask you is that you build a robust CAP plan for us. As you put the draft measures together, that you put things in there that might make you a little uncomfortable for this city. Okay, that actually push your boundaries a little bit, and you put in some things that we as residents are asking for so that we have a multi-year document, Does it mean that today you have to execute a CCE like we've been talking about, or other things? The answer is no. But if you put them in these documents, you're saying to us as residents that you're listening to us and that you're looking for pathways forward that we all can take, and we can support you in that. So that's my first request. All right. My second request is that we do an annual report of the CAP. Okay. There are cities that have CAPs out there. We would like actually to be a public report once a year, so we know where you're at and what's important to both the commission and the city council. We'd like to actually hear what our officials think about and where you're moving, so that we can actually tell you what we're thinking in return. And the last piece is in support of a CAP implementation staff. So I'm going to take John's idea there and tweak it just a tiny bit, all right? And say this CAP staff can not only actually educate and support your staff on actually implementing or researching and figuring out how to build a robust CAP that works for our city and for our residents, but actually that individual could also be an educator and a researcher who brings things to both the council and the commission that can educate all of us. For example, did you know that the city of California actually just approved community solar? So when a woman that was talking about actually wanting some solar and multifamily, there is an option out there. Most of us don't know about that. Okay, or that the building codes, when the gentleman was talking about the codes, that we have building codes in California that are extremely progressive, all right? And those building codes changed again in 2019, again. And with our governor and a new governor coming in, we've been very progressive in actually putting things in place, but that's new construction. So this individual can help educate and inform. Another idea would be is SDG&E, who the city has a deep partnership with, and we actually do talk to them and listen to them. There's an amazing amount of rebates that are available to the residents and to the businesses, and that CAP implementation person, that staff person, could actually help on that information too. So we have lots of opportunities in front of us. Thank you for the time to listen. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Matthew LaComplete.
Hello, Commissioners. Exhaust and electricity are the two major concerns. I think just being realistic, I think it's going to be easier for the city to generate more electricity than it is to get people to stop using their cars. I do empathize with my fellow community members about their safety concerns with traveling and general lack of public transportation. So if that could be included in the climate initiative or a separate initiative, I would also be for that. The state also has set some pretty strong, ambitious guidelines for us moving forward. And I think the only way we're going to meet those is by taking advantage of our naturally renewing resources. And that, of course, is like the sun and the ocean, solar and tidal. Now, granted, Vista does not share a coast, or it has a coast. So I'd encourage the council and the commissioners to sort of be clever in their partnerships, because we do have two sister cities that do. if that was possible to explore. I'm also a big fan of community choice and the smart grid, allowing people to sell power back into the grid. It's just makes sense. So does community choice.
Thank you. That was our last speaker slip. So, seeing no one coming forward. Commissioners, did you have any comments for Mr. Connolly? Commissioner Garrettson.
Just one or two comments. Just to thank all the speakers for their courage to come here and speak out, and how important it is that we hear from the entire community. So thank you, for coming out. Also, a comment. I understand that the Vista Unified School District is going to be looking at busing. So the person that had a concern about walking 2 miles to school might want to be in touch with the Vista Unified School District. I had talked with the superintendent about something, and she mentioned that they were revisiting that. Also, the sidewalks, report it to a staff member if the sidewalks are overgrown and so forth, or download the Access Vista and report it. And finally, if anybody has a bicycle that they'd love to donate to that gentleman, we would appreciate it. That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Carroll.
Thank you, Chairman. So congratulations to staff, because your community outreach program is working, obviously. So I think you're doing a good job, and we appreciate, it makes for long meetings, but the commission and staff overall, I think, appreciate the public input and getting to hear all the different opinions and things that are going on in the city and different neighborhoods. I have a couple topics to touch on, and one is the sidewalks. I think the sidewalks do tie into the CAP with pedestrian traffic being one of the avenues to lighten the transportation issue. So the city has in place a capital improvements plan where various different years, various different projects, sidewalk improvements, the city just takes care of. And what is the process for a citizen to contact the city and say, hey, I've got a little part of our neighborhood here really needs a sidewalk? What's the process for the public to contact the city to initiate a capital improvement project?
So we have a request form that we currently use to evaluate those requests that come in from residents, and we ask them to fill it out and provide some information about what they're looking for. And then as part of the CIP process, we go through those at the staff level and we identify where the deficiency is, what's required to fix it, how much it costs, and then prioritize those for repairs that we can either do at the maintenance level or schedule them for new sidewalks that can be part of a capital project. So for the past several years, we've just been relying on that program to do our sidewalk improvements and to identify new sidewalks. But this year we have an inventory that we're actually preparing that we just contracted for, where we're going to have a consultant go out and inventory our entire sidewalk system citywide and identify where there are gaps that we need to fill and where there are maintenance issues, and then prioritize those. So we'll have a better tool. But we look at those on a priority basis, just in terms of highest pedestrian usage. If they serve local elementary schools, there's a lot of kids using them. What the cost is to make that improvement, is it grant eligible? So we go through a whole kind of analysis to determine what we put into the CIP for that year. We have a big backlog, though.
Right, of course. But so the public should be at the front counter downstairs, filling out
forms. Or they can email
or
us or get on our website and file those through the city's website. The issues that go to Public Works for maintenance that are not maintenance related end up coming back to engineering, and we put those into our queue for the CIP.
Okay, good, thanks. And then regarding public transit, I don't use a lot of public transit, so I don't have a way to gauge the level of service of the city of Vista, of public transit within the city of Vista, as it compares to other cities, or as it compares to where it should be, or if there's a SANDAG goal that we're not meeting for that. I have no idea where we stand on that.
So we don't control the public transit system, that's NCTD, and so we don't have any control over how frequently the buses come or what routes they take. We certainly have some influence. We have a council member that's on their board, so we look out for it as a region. From the city's perspective, we're looking at access to the transit system and facilities supporting the transit system. So are there sidewalks from the neighborhoods to the bus stops? Are they safe? Are there bus shelters that provide, safe locations for the pedestrians to get on the bus? For a long time, we didn't really do much about that issue, to be honest. So in the last few years, especially with the input of the Poder Popular group, we have looked at bus shelters as a potential CIP project, and we're seeking grant funds. We're working with NCTD to put those in. And then the sidewalk issues are always part of the equation.
Yeah, it ties in. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Very good. Anyone else? Commissioner Garrettson?
Yes, Mr. Conley. Our general plan calls for so many acres of parkland per 1,000 population. Is there a plan in place to keep up with that? Meaning, do we have a plan in place to buy land or to expand our recreational facilities long term? Because if we build everything out with housing and restaurants and so forth, at some point in time, we're not going to have land that we could actually expand to be used by, for parks. So do we have such a plan?
No, we don't. The council identified that in their last goal-setting session as a goal to prepare a parks needs analysis, and so we're looking into that to have a consultant evaluate that. Really, from the perspective of staff, we don't go out and identify private properties for future park development because it creates all kinds of problems for us. But the way we've been handling that for the most part is when we have the funding available, and the needs analysis will move forward. We'll identify sites where the needs are the greatest, and then we'll purchase private land and create a park opportunity. That's how we've been doing that for a long time. The park on Palo Vista Drive at Civic Center is an example of that. It wasn't all vacant land. There were some homes on it we did have to demolish, and I imagine that's kind of a similar program we're going to have to go through for future park sites.
Well, typically, parks departments are focusing on residents being within 10 minutes of a park. So that should tell us what locations we need to have parks. If you look at the map of all the parks, they're big, shall we say, areas where they're not within 10 minutes. So it would seem to me that should be part of the city planning.
It will be part of the needs analysis, absolutely.
Second question is, what is the status on the coordination of the traffic lights within the city? I know that study has been initiated, and there's been some funding for that from the city council. What is the
there is status? A interconnect project which will connect all of our traffic signals to a fiber line that will provide real-time video to our traffic engineering staff and real-time control of the signal components. South Vista is the first phase of that, which is under construction. That's probably going to take another few months to complete. And then North Vista, we have some money for. We don't have full funding for, so we're going to do that in some different phases, but that will probably take 2 years to complete.
Is that primarily Santa Fe, Melrose, the major thoroughfares?
It's everything.
Everything.
It's all of our signals connected to a system of fiber network that ties into the Civic Center traffic system.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Ms. Flores, the ladies that spoke this evening concerning about sidewalks, you just heard the discussion about the form that's available for them. Could you relay that information onto them in private, and so that they know that there's a process for them to bring up their concern with the city and maybe have it addressed?
Sure.
And I will. And we've actually been working with John and his team and Sam over at engineering around different Complete Streets projects, Complete Streets being the ultimate goal. And so we're aware of I think that was one of the approaches that we took a couple of years ago, and there were some sidewalks one. But I think the concern is around complete streets across the city, and particularly prioritizing those that are most vulnerable that have no other option but walking. So I'm happy to learn that there's a different approach being taken, so we'll explore that together.
Okay, thank you.
We also held a couple of community meetings on the Townsite Drive and North Santa Fe corridor to get input for a grant that we're applying for to build some additional sidewalks and some roundabouts and some traffic calming measures. And I have a community recommended design that I can share with the commission that we've submitted for a grant application.
Excellent. Very good.
Commissioner
Garrison.
Sorry. Just a suggestion that our student commissioners should get the opportunity to speak on this subject.
Did you have any comments this evening? Okay.
Not on this subject.
Need to come and use the microphone.
If you want.
And since we didn't meet you before the meeting, introduce yourself and where you go to school.
Hello, I'm Jesse Van Hacht. I live in Vista. I agree with the point that Garrettson and Jackal had with the safety regarding the rope. I think it could be quite dangerous if they don't come up with some kind of better plan, like railing,
Okay, very good. Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Looney, I'm sorry.
It's okay, thank you. John, the street improvements taking place on Vista Way, how do those improvements support some of the items that we've been talking about slowing traffic, about bicycle lanes, about that green canopy?
So the improvements on Vista Way are a raised median for traffic safety purposes. It will include landscaping in the median, so there will be a few additional trees installed as part of it. The intent is to prevent left turns out of the numerous driveways along that stretch of Vista Way between the fire station and Williamston, because we have a really high accident history out there. When the project is done, there will be 3 lanes striped northbound with a bike lane and 2 lanes southbound with a bike lane, so the bike lanes will come back. The striping that's out there right now is just temporary for construction purposes. So there'll be a little bit more capacity in the northbound direction when the project's done.
Okay, thank you.
Super. All right. If there any questions for us, Mr. Conley?
So I appreciate the input. I don't need any more feedback per se. I just wanted to update the commission on what we're doing and give you an opportunity to provide any comments before we march into the measures selection process. And like I said, I'll be back to report on the progress of that probably within the next couple months.
Very good. Thank you very much. So that concludes our discussion item tonight. The last item on our agenda is a report from Mr. Connolly about basically what else is happening in the city and our next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to welcome our new student commissioners, Grace and JC, who are joining us for this year. Our next Planning Commission meeting will be on August 7th. We have 1 item scheduled at this point. We may have another one, but I know we'll have 1 public hearing. Construction updates. We are close to issuing grading for the Monarch project, which is behind the 99-cent store. They should start construction here in the next few weeks. They'll be moving equipment onto the site. And the South Santa Fe Mar Vista, the KB Homes project as well, is going to be issued a grading permit here. Wow. We did issue a building permit to the Honda development. They're well underway. I'm sure you've seen the activity out there, but you'll probably see some building construction here within the next month. The opening of Raising Cane's is next week, I think Tuesday morning. I think everybody received notice of that, and so they'll have a grand opening event for that. The apartments there on Vista Village next to Fraser Farms are close to being completed. They had some connection issues with gas and electricity, but they expect to allow their first tenants in the first phase of the building probably in mid-August. And that's it for construction updates unless anyone has any questions.
Commissioner Looney.
John, several months ago, we looked at a development at the corner of Mar Vista and Santa Fe that's next to the old Chicago Title building.
Yes.
And there was
early design review.
Right, and there was some discussion about the possibility of a land agreement where Mar Vista could continue across at that lighted intersection to enter that property. Has any other design work or site design work been done?
Yes, so they have submitted a formal application. It's in our process. Mr. Ressler is processing it, and my understanding is that they are going to realign their driveway to allow for the entrance into their project through the signal.
Excellent.
That'll be just a great improvement for them.
Yeah, so it'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kramer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Connolly, the status of the car wash at Vista Way and Meadow Lake?
Williamston, you mean, though?
Yes.
It's built. It's been fenced for weeks.
Yeah.
They did not have their power connection in the appropriate location in their plans. It was not identified. Once it was identified, it was determined that it was on through the adjacent property that the bank owns. The bank was uncooperative in allowing them an easement, and so they had to go back out to the street and relocate their power connections. So it's taken them a few weeks to get San Diego Gas and Electric to make that improvement, and they should be connecting in the next couple weeks. We're hoping they open. But there was a delay as a result of a design change problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. If there's nothing else, we stand adjourned until August 7th. Thank you.